Yeah, hello guys, welcome to a new session. And in this session, what we plan on doing is to move forward with the process at which a user can actually reset password or do forgot password the u- on the using the backend API. So in order to do that, I already stated in the last session, we actually implemented a way for an already authenticated user to actually do forgot password, right? So in this session, the purpose of this session is to focus on when a user is not authenticated, how do they go about changing their password? So the first thing that is going to happen is a reset token will be sent to their email address when they initiate the forgot password. And of course, they have to provide us their email address. Then after initiating the forgot password, the next thing we are going to do is create another handler that is capable of accepting the specified token and updating the user password. So I'm going to start by creating a new file and I'm going to call it reset password. And the first function that we'll be creating in our reset password file is the um forgot password handler, right? Like so. I'm going to call it forgot forgot password, like so. So the forgot password, the first thing we are going to do is we are going to create a request, and inside, just like we've been doing, I'm going to create the request right here. Type name struct, and the name of the struct will be forgot password request, right? And the forgot password request we contain some stuff. The first thing that it will contain is the email of the user, and we are expecting it to be the JSON format will be email. That is what we'll be expecting, and it will be required, and it must be of type email. The next thing that we request from the client is the front end URL. The reason why I'm doing this is because since the API it is going to be integrated by someone, right? Let's say a front-end developer, and the front-end developer will actually know the particular base URL they are using at the time, right? So that way, using the front-end URL supplied to us, we'll then use it to actually generate the URL we'll be attaching to the user, to the email we'll be sending to the user. So this way, our front-end URL is not static, and the backend does not necessarily have to go to the environment variable to update the front-end URL. So let's go back here now. The first thing we are going to do as usual is to initiate the payload validation and all. I'll copy this as well again. Come here, paste. So what we need this time is the forgot password request. We are binding it, then we are doing our validation. So after binding and doing validation, the next thing we want to do is we want to get the user by the email provided. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to call the user service as we have been doing the user service, and I'm going to get the user by email address. So after initiating the user service, we are trying to retrieve the user by the email provided to us in the payload in the forgot password request. Then we can call this retrieved user, right? So if the error returned is of type error or record not found, we want to state, mm, what should we do? We can just say record not found, or the email does not exist. Record not found, register with this email. So that means the record does not exist in our database, and they can go ahead to actually register on the platform. So another thing we can probably do is, we don't necessarily have to send a bad request, since this is a not found stuff, or not found instance. We can send not found response. So, and the not found response will be of status of 404, as you can see. So now that we already have the retrieved user, the next thing we need to do now is so another thing that I want to check is, if for some reason an error occurred and it is not of type record not found, we want to say that we want to send a bad request, or we want to send an internal server error. And we can call it, so, but we need to update the message we are saying. We can just say an error occurred while trying to reset password, or let's say an error occurred. You can say try again later, right? So if an error occurred and is not of type error, okay, let's do this. I think I will prefer this. So if the error is not nil, right, and the type of error returned is type record not found, we send record not found. Otherwise, we send internal server error. And I think we also need to update this in some couple of places that we've only checked for record not found. So we'll update as we move on. Don't let us waste time on that. So what we've done here is, just to be clear, if the error is not nil, we want to check if this supplied error is of type record not found, go rm error record not found. If that is the case, we are telling the user that the record does not exist. Let the user register with this email. Otherwise, an error occurred, try again later. Or another thing that we can do is, okay, let's leave it at that for now. So the next thing we are going to do now is, we are going to find a way to actually generate user password reset token for our users. Then how do we go about the generation of password reset token? So what we are going to do now is, we are going to create another model. Let's go to our models. I'm going to create a model. I'm going to call it app token. I'm going to call the file name app token. And inside app token, our app token model is going to contain some um, some attributes. So let's start with defining app token. It will contain the base model as usual, just like our previous user model. Then inside the app token, the first thing we need is target type. Uh, target type, which will be a string, and it will have a JSON. But what I'm going to do here is, I'm not going to include this in JSON. So the JSON will just be this. And I'm going to also have a target ID. I'll explain everything in a moment. Target ID. And this will also not be included in the JSON. Then we have to state that this will not be null. We can state not null, right? Can state not null. We should also index this. Should be an indexed. Should be indexed. Should not be null, right? The next thing we want to define is the type of token. Sorry, type of token, which of be of type string. We don't also need to send this in JSON. Um, Another thing we need to set is probably then we need to set used. This will be Boolean, that is the particular token has been used, right? Then this will be Boolean. Do not forget it will be of type bool, just like you define in your schema. If you are using regular HTML or regular MySQL, then expires at this is basically when the particular token that was generated will expire. We have index and so on. I think I don't need the target type. I don't need it for now. Let us complicate things. So expires as will be of time dot time, and it will be indexed as well. And the reason why I am indexing it is so that the retrieval will be very fast. Our query will be very fast. I'm going to remove the type. I'm going to let Golang give us the type. The GoRM specify the type based on the type we've defined here. We've specified that it is not null. This is not null. This is a character. This is of type Boolean. So now that we've actually created the model, the next thing we are going to define is what we actually want to name the table function app token. I don't need this for this. I don't need this receiver for this. So that will be table name. And the table name will be return app underscore tokens and returning a string. So this way, this has to be in capital letter. So this way actually specify our table name that will be registering with. So that will be created in the database, I mean. So once you have created your model, the next thing we need to do is to update our database command migration up with the new model we've created, and that will be the ampersand models.app token model. So once we do this, we are going to run a migration to actually migrate this app token model. So let's go back to our command, our terminal. Sorry, let's check. So I remember the make file that I populated. So in order to do migration, all you need to do, if you are not using the make file, all you need to run is go run internal database migrate up, as long as you've actually structured your application the way we've structured it. But for me, because I'm using the make file, all I need to just do is run make migrate. And once I run make migrate, you can see database connection successful, migration completed. So let's go to our database and see. Let's see the tables that we have. So you can see now we have another table called app tokens. Select data. For now, nothing is inside the app tokens table. So to move, let's go back to our code editor. Now that we have actually created the database, the next thing we need to do now is we need to create the app token service. I'm going to create it right here. Call it app token service. So like we created for our user service, I'm going to create a struct for it as well. And the struct will be app token service. This one will be init app token service, like so. Now that we've associated it with it, then we are going to initiate the app token service with the DB that is being passed, and we'll return app token service. Now we need some couple of method in our app token. The first thing I'm going to create is a function to generate a token. Func app token service. I'm just going to call this app token service. This will be a pointer. So I'll call it get token. This will not be available for public use. So to generate a token, I'm going to use the Golang rand seed method, rand.seed. So what the seed this is basically a way for us to generate a random token. I don't want to go into the technicalities of this. I'm going to provide time.now. Just follow along. I don't want to provide the Unix nano. You can read up on random.seed to learn more. And the minimum token that I want to generate, like this, the minimum random token I want to generate is 10,000. 10,000. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this will make sure that our token is always of 6 digits. That is why I'm actually doing that. And the maximum is 9923455. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that should be 9. So this means any token that is generated will always be 6 digits. So that's why I'm doing this. So now we are now going to return rand dot int, where we pass the maximum minus minimum. So this rand we basically generates number based on I wish we can actually, so let me maximum minus minimum plus 1 and plus minimum. So this will be an int. So if we check this, you can see int returns an int, a non-negative pseudo-random number in the half open interval. So n, as long as if n is less than or equals to 0, it's so if n, that is the value that we are passing into it, is less than n or less than or equals to 0, it will throw a panic. So now that we have that defined, uh, okay, it's telling us that it collides. So let's call this. Actually, we don't necessarily have to do this. So let's just say 1099 being the maximum, 1000 being the minimum, minimum being the 10,000, I mean 10,000. So we don't need these variables, right? So this is like our maximum, minimum, then plus 1. So the next thing we need to create is a function, as I said, that we can use to actually generate a user token and also a user for password reset token, and also a function to validate the user password reset token. So I'm going to copy this function. No, I don't need to copy it. Func, and we are going to generate app token service just like we did above, and this will be a pointer. We are now going to call this generate token. I will just call it generate password or let me say for generate forgot password. Let me call it reset. Sorry, reset password token. Naming is one of the biggest developer problem. So our password reset token is going to be expecting the user model models.user, and it's also going to be expecting, and yeah, that's all, since we are generating reset password token for a user, right? Then also we are now it is going to return a app token, app models.app token, or it returns an error, and this has to be a pointer. So the first thing I'm going to create is an instance of um, the app token itself, and the app token has what we call the I made a mistake with the app token model. We are not specifying the user that actually owns the model. So that's the purpose of. So I'm just going to create targets. Sorry, target. Let me call it target ID. It will be a string. This is not null. We need to the GoRM right there on it. Not null to be indexed, and of course is not of type character. So I'm just going to run the migration command again, and that will update our database. If I select app token, now you see that the target ID has been added for us. So the next thing I'm going to do now is, so now that we have that implemented, so let's go back to our app token service. So the first thing we are going to attach is the target ID, which is going to be the user dot ID. The next thing we are going to attach is the type. So the type of this particular token is reset password. And the reason why I'm creating a generic app token model is because we are most likely going to have multiple. I think I made a mistake on the app token model. App token model int. Okay. I can see also it should be unsigned int u int. Yeah, it should be u int. So that way I will to accept our user ID. So remember to please change this to u int. Then so it will be of type reset password. Then also we will have the token itself. Didn't we define token? Oh, come on. We didn't even remember to define the token itself. Sorry. We should have defined the token on the model. So the token will be a string, and it will be of character valchar. It does not have to be unique. Which will let's just index it. It does not have to be unique. Then JSON token, even though we'll not be sending it. So I don't think we are sending out tokens. So the token will be what was actually generated here. That will be app service dot get token, and we actually need to convert this to a string. We need to convert, so this helps us convert the integer to a string. The next thing that we need to impute is used will have a value of false since we are just creating it. Then expires at will be time dot now dot add. So when we want it to expire, maybe in an hour or 24 hours. So I'm just going to set it to 24 hours. So add time dot hour. Remember to actually import these packages. Please look through these packages. So now that we have our model initiated, we can easily say result. So we are creating the token that we've actually initialized. Then if there is any error, we want to return error. And also once we are done, if there is no error, we want to return the token created. So the next thing I'm going to create now is a way for us to actually validate the reset password token. So I'll call it validate reset password token. So this will be expecting the token as a string and the user as well. And this will be returning the app token or an error right? So with this one, we are not creating a new token. What we are trying to do here now is we are trying to retrieve the app token itself. So I'm just going to remove all this. I'm going to call this retrieved token. So this will be a variable. Sorry, this should be a variable. Var retrieve token. Then we are going to call on the app service. We are going to say app token.db service dot where. I'm making a mistake. When you are doing where clause, we must actually, the first argument must be the model that you actually want to perform a where clause on. So we are going to pass in the model like this without the sorry, like this, sorry, like this, okay. This is how you do a where query. Then you specify the where clauses that you want to actually query this model against. So the first thing is the target ID, and the target ID will be the user dot ID. Also, we need to be sure that the type is of type reset password. Then we also need to be sure that the token is actually equals to the token passed right here, right? So basically, this is basically saying selects where target ID is the user ID, type is reset password, and token is what? Token. And we want to pick the first one, the first one, and the destination. That is when we supply this retrieved token. So if an item is found, this will actually be updated. Otherwise, it will not be updated. So the first thing we are going to check is if we are getting if result dot error is not nil, right? We want to check if the error returned errors dot is of type, if the error, that is result dot error, is type GoRM record not found, that is this token for the particular where clauses does not exist, we want to say return nil, nil for the user model, and remember we are returning the app token model and the error, sorry. And this will be errors.new. We are going to say invalid token, right? Or let's just say invalid password. Invalid token is just fine. Invalid password reset token, right? Don't know why this is always complaining. So otherwise, if that is not the error, we just want to return the particular error that actually occurred. But if there are no error, we want to check if retrieved, we have not gotten here yet. If retrieved token, we are going to get here, but that's not the way I want to approach it. If retrieved password token used, if it is used, that is used is true. Remember when we are creating this guy, our used is false. If the used is true, then we also we are also going to retain this same error, basically saying invalid password resets token, or we can say the token has been used, blah blah blah. But let's just say invalid password reset token. Then if the retrieved password token is before, that is, it has expired, right? That is, the token has expired. We can then return, we will not call this invalid password reset token. We are just going to say password reset token expired. Please try again. Please reattempt. Let's say reattempt, reattempt, forgot password. Or we can just say reinitiate, initiate. That should be more clearer. Reinitiate forgot password. But if everything goes well, right? If everything goes well, the token is still valid and all we just need to do is return the token itself, right? This is for validating password resets token. Um, so another thing that we need to do is we need to create a method to actually invalidate a token. So we say I'll create a function and call it right under the app token service, just like we've been doing. Then I will say invalidate. I'll just say invalidate token. And the invalidate token method is going to accept the user ID. I'm just going to accept user ID here, user underscore ID, which will be an int. I'll also accept the token itself, right? And what else do we need? Let's accept the app token, the app token models dot app token. Now we are just going to perform a simple update. We are going to say app token service.db where is it where token.db dot model, the model you want to perform the update on, which is the models app token. This has to be a pointer. So now where this is a bit tricky. The where clause here is not going to be like our regular where clause because we are actually doing multiple stuff. It's going to be somewhat like a query where target type, the target ID is equals to some stuff, and the token equals to some value as well. So you can see is my, so you need to make sure that you arrange the value just like you've arranged it in your query. So this will replace this question mark, and this will replace this question mark, right? And we are now going to say update.used equals to true. That's the column that we are trying to update. So this will be user ID. So to think about it, let's use the user ID. Let's use the user ID passed, even though it is present in the app token, but let's use the user ID passed. Then we return. So the next thing we want to check is we don't want to return anything here actually. We don't want to return anything. Either it went through or not. We don't really care. We don't want this to actually break our application. So once we've done this invalidate token, we've done validate reset password token, and we've done generate reset password token. The next place for us to go now is back to our handlers and the reset password part. And once we now remember that we've already retrieved the user we want to generate a token for. So now we need to get the token, and we are going to say app token. Uh, if not initialized, okay, we need to initialize the app token service as well. App token service, new app token service, and it will accept the DB. So app token service dot generate reset password token and supply the retrieved user, and what else is being expected? Okay, nothing else, so we are good. So if error is not nil, we want to send during the process of generating the reset password token, an error occurred, try again later. Let me see how we are handling stuff right here. Okay, yes. So we are good with that. So if we are unable to generate the reset password token, we just want to return internal server error, because this must have been a system error. If all goes well, what we want to do is then send a mail to the user that will contain the reset password token. So for the mail, I've already created an HTML template that we are going to use, forgot password. Just like we did for welcome message, we have two sections. We have the subject and we have the HTML body. So I'm going to go to the auth handler where we actually registered user and copy everything that is here that we use to actually send a mail, and paste right here. So for this particular email, there are some couple of things that makes it quite different to the previous email we sent. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to generate an encoded email, because I don't want the because I'm going to be attaching the encoded email to the URL. So I'm going to say encoded email will be equals to I'm going to be converting it to base 64, and I'm going to encode it. This is how you actually encode to a string. So basically, I don't want to disturb us with all the technicalities around this. Just understand this, please. Then we need to retrieve the front end URL. We need to pass the front end URL for us to be sure it is actually a valid URL. So we say um, um, front end. So the reason why we are passing it is to make sure that nothing has, if anything of concern has been attached, an error will actually be thrown. So front end URL, comma, error equals to URL package. The package is available in /.net URL, and this is what we need. So what does this function do? Let's read it up. Passes a raw URL into a URL structure. The URL may be relative path, blah, blah, blah. Trying to pass the host name path without scheme is invalid, but may not necessarily return an error due to passing ambiguities. So we just need to, so in order to pass it, we attach the front end based on the payload dot front end URL, right? So if the error is not nil, we want to send a bad request, and state that invalid front end URL. That is if the URL could not be passed. Otherwise, if the URL is passed, then now we have something to actually build with. So let's build a query, which will be URL.values. What are the values that we want in our query? We want query.set email. In the query, we want the encoded string that we generated here, right here, rename to, okay, I don't want that, encoded email. Then we also want to set the token, the set token, and that will be token. That is this token that was actually generated for us. Now, once we have actually built our query, we can then build our front-end URL saying front-end URL dot raw query. Don't bother yourself. All this is doing is basically generating a URL for us that will be well set URL. That's basically what this is actually doing for us. So now that we've actually generated the encoded URL, the next thing for us now is to build the email data. So in order to, so what are the data that we actually need for this particular email? Let's check our forgot password. We need the subjects, we need the front-end URL in the meta tag, and we need the token, right? So let's go back to our reset password handler. In fact, I need to rechange this, rename to reset password handler so that it can be uniform across. So what we need, the first thing we need is the token, and we also need the front end, and also need the front end URL, which will also be a string. This will be the token, this will be the front end URL. So the token will now be up on the token dot token, and the front end URL will basically be the URL we generated, front end URL dot to string. We want the string part of the way. We have converted all the raw query that we generated to a string. Now we can then change the template, which is forgot password .html. So what this will do is it will send an email to the user, and the subject of our mail has to be what do we call the subject of our mail? Let's just say Let's just call it request for password resets. Thank you, my code editor. Then if everything goes well, we want to send a response to the users to let them know that their password reset token has been sent. So we say return common dot send success, pass the echo context, and the message stating that forgot password email sent, and we are passing nil as data because we are not sending any data. So this is for us to actually get a forgot password email. So let's come back. So I'm going to organize our collection a bit. I'm going to add a folder and I'm going to call this auth. And inside the auth, I want the register requests. I also want the login requests. I also want the authenticated user requests, or let me create another folder, call it profile. Then I'm going to move the get authenticated user in the profile, change password to the profile. Then I'm going to create another folder and call it password. I'll call it maybe forgot password. Inside this folder, I'm going to create a request and call it reset. The first request we are doing is forgot password. Then forgot password. And the URL will be, okay, we've not registered the URL. So let's go ahead and register the URL for forgot password. So I'm going to go to our route. So right under here, still under the auth group, I'll say public route dot post requests, and that will be forgot password, and the handler will be forgot password handler. Now let's go ahead and refresh our application. Make run dev. Now that we've done, I'm not sure. Let's rerun our database. I think we made a change to our database. Let's check. Okay, now the token is now there. Please run your database migration again because we added additional data to the user model. Now I'm going to come here and call auth forgot password / password, and it is going to be a post request. Let's send it. What do we get? So you can see that email is required and front-end URL is required. We are going to send that as JSON. So forgot, that will be email. So let's say t@gmail.com. The front end URL will be some random URL. I'm just going to copy some random page URL. Let me say go ORM or echo Lamstock. So I'm just going to copy the echo URL as my front end URL. Then let me first of all pass an invalid email. Let's see what the response will be. So you can, interesting. We have a user T1. That's why it is actually going through. Let's check users, select data. So that means we have a user T1. That's why the password reset token is actually going through. I want to pass in a user we do not have. So what do we get? So you can see record not found, register with this email. So let's bring up the email address. I'm bringing it up. refreshing. So you can see that, remember, so for those of you that did not watch how we actually set up the mailer, I'm going to show you at the right corner of your screen. You are going to see a link to actually use to learn how to set up your mailer so that you can know how to actually reset password, how to actually send mail to your user. So you can see we received the request password, blah, blah, blah. This is the token that was generated, and this is the URL. Now look at that URL. So if you look at the top corner of my screen, let me bring it up a bit. You will see the URL top bottom corner. You can see how the URL has been generated with the email converted to a base 64 and the token attached 44121. So but what we need is the token on the long run. So now that we are getting our forgot password email, what we need now is a way to use the token that was generated to reset our password. So I'm going to create a new route, reset password, and I'm going to call this reset password, and I'm going to create this method right here, function reset password. So you can see this has been created for me. So just like we did, we are going to copy all of this. I know we are doing a lot of copying. For now, let's do it. And I'm also going to copy the app token service. Um, the app token service. I see that I've gone from the naming principle that we started with. So I'm going to just update this to forgot password handler. And I'm also going to update this to request password handler. I like keeping things the way it was started. So I'm going to call this, I'm going to attach the handler to this as well. So what are the things that we actually need for reset password after getting the mail? The first thing we are going to need is to actually create a request the request we are expecting from user. I'm just going to copy this and I'm going to rename this to reset password request. And for our reset password request, we need number one, the password. I'm just going to copy these two guys. We need the password and confirm password field. Password and the confirm password field. We also need the token that is to be used, the token sent to the user, token sent to the user as a string as well. And our token length is a minimum of, if we count, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So our token length is a minimum of 5. And uh, okay, I think we are good for now. I think we are good for now. Um, I'm just trying to think to be sure we are good. Okay, so now that we have that in place, I'm going to just come right here where we are changing password and copy this request and create a add request here and call it reset password. Let's create local host. Sorry, that's not what I want. Local host forgot password and change this to reset password. If we hit this now, we should get not found. Do not worry. This will be a post request. If we hit it again, it will be not found. And that's because we've not refreshed our application. But let us implement first. Um, now that we have done the process of, so let's impute reset password request. So we are going to bind our data, then we are going to perform the necessary validation. If all goes well, the next thing we want to do is that um, remember that we actually attached a an encoded string to the email we are sending. If you check this, you'll see that email, and we are expecting it from the front end or from the client. So I'm just going to update this password reset token right now, and I'm going to call this metal. I'm going to call this metal, and it will be a string. And we are expecting a metal string. So the metal string is required with the token required. So you must supply both the, let me just say required. I don't know why. Just use required. Required. So we don't have a minimum of 5 for it. We just want it to be required. We've already pasted the JSON file, validate. Okay, we are good. So the meta token will contain the generated encoded string. So let's go back to our root handler. So the first thing I'm going to do is initiate a new user service. I'm also going to initiate the app token service, just like we did here. I'm also going to initiate the app token service. Then after initiating the app token service, I'm going to, so the first thing, so let's try to decode our email address just before instantiating our services. So our email error. So we want to say that base 64, we are using the base 64 package, standard new decode string. We are looking for decode string, standard encoding, then decode string. So the string we are decoding is basically our payload dot metal. So which is going to be like which is going to be what we are calling is decode string. Decode string. So that one is expecting a string. So this will be that encoded email. Please do not forget. So if error is nil, is not nil, then we want to send a bad request. We can say, we are going to say error occurred, try again later. If everything goes well, do we then want to retrieve our user? Let me just copy to reduce coding time. Retrieved user, I'm going to copy this, paste. So we are using, okay, this will be after we've defined our service. So we are using our service to actually get the user based on the decoded email, like so. Get user email. Why is it? Okay, let's just convert this to string. I'm just going to convert this to string. So this will actually help us convert the byte, because this is actually returning a byte. As you can see, we are going to convert it to a string. So if there is an error, we return the error, record not found, blah, blah, blah. So what we can do here is we will not send record not found based on the registered email. We are just going to say invalid password reset token. That is all we are going to say. Then the same thing. So, but if the record is not type of record not found, then we are going to return an internal server error, like so. So if all of that goes well, what we want to do now is we want to validate the user password reset token. So we are going to say, sorry, app token service dot validate password reset token. We are going to pass the retrieved user and the token itself. And our token is just right there inside the payload dot token, right? Okay, what's this expecting? User model, of course. So we have to pass this as a pointer, because remember, this is actually returning a pointer, so we need to dereference it to actually pass it in. So let's get the app token, or the error app token, or the error. So if our error is not nil, we want to send that, because what we are going to send, let's check what we are doing in the password reset token. Are we sending any stuff? Okay, so we can actually return any error that is coming from here. We can return error that is coming from here. So I'm just going to return the error right here. I'm just going to say error, like so. So if everything goes well, if the validate password reset token is fine, that is, the password reset token is fine, the next thing we want to do is we want to actually change the user password. So let's go to our user service. Um, user service, sorry, user service. I think we already have, you see, we already have a method to actually change user service. So all we are just going to do is call that particular method. We just say user service, and what we are calling is change user password to the new password that was supplied to us, which will be payload dot password, and the user model itself, retrieved user. Remember to pass it as a reference. So okay, this is only is this returning? Okay, this is only returning error, so we only need the error parts. So if an error occurred during the process of changing user password, we can just return the error coming from the function itself. Say internal server error, that is something actually occurred within our system itself. Okay, because we already defined an error here, so we don't need this. So now that if our password was actually changed successfully, what we want to do is invalidate the token. We'll say app token service dot invalidate token. We supply the user password, retrieved user dot ID, based on the requirements of invalidate token, the app token itself. So why is this app token? App token, okay, we just need to do this. What's this complaining about? Retrieve user type ID. Okay, so this will be uint. It should be an unsigned integer, which is true, of course. If you go back to our reset handler, now you see that everything is fine. So we can then return a command success and say reset password successful. Now that we have actually completed our the handler for doing reset password, like so, reset password handler, as we have actually done, what we'll be doing now is we'll be testing out this reset password handler out. So the first thing I'll be doing is I'll be initiating another forgot password. I'll be initiating a forgot password sent. Now that we've initiated it, if we check our mail, we see that an email has actually dropped. Now, if we check this email, we will notice that this is the token, this is the email encoded string. And if we impute the email encoded string right here and also copy the token that was sent, which is basically this guy, into this route, if we hit, now you will notice that we are getting an error occurred, try again later. And if we try to investigate what the error is, it's currently not being printed to our screen. So we are going to go to reset password. This is where the issue is coming from. So what I'm going to do now is, then another thing I want you to notice is, you notice that the string being decoded based on what we supplied is just t1@gmail.com. The OM is not there. But let's see what the error is. Let's see what the error is. Error. Let's refresh our application. So let's try to reset the password again. Now you can see we are getting a legal base 64 data in input bytes 99. So the issue that we are having is that we are making use of the standard encoding provided for us by base 64 in Golang. But because we are actually encoding the string we are generating inside a URL, what is being replaced is, if we go back to our forgot password and try to actually print this encoded mail, let me say fmt.println encoded mail, and go back to, let me refresh the application. If we go back to where we are calling forgot password, now there is something I want you to notice. You will notice, look at this string ending with 20, and there is a particular equal to right at the end that is not being attached to the token being generated for us here. If you inspect this URL properly, you will notice that we have a percentage and we have 3D, which is not what is actually generated for us here. And the reason why this is happening is because this equals to is not safe to be attached at this end. So that's why it is being replaced with a URL based the URL, this ampersand is equal to is comparable to equals to in this instance. So in order for us not to be having this kind of behavior, what we'll be using is the raw, what we'll be using is the URL base64 URL encoding. So this will make sure that our data is encoded to a string that can be attached to a URL. So I'm going to copy this, and we also make sure that we are using the same way to actually decode our string. Raw URL encoding, also replace here with where is it right now? Raw URL encoding. So let's refresh our application. Now let's try to reset password again. Let's hit the forgot password. Now look at the token being generated for us this time. So you can see that the equals to is no longer there. So this is actually attachable to a URL. If we check our new email now, click on it. Let me close, and let me come back. Click on it. If you check our URL now, so you can see that we have this email nicely encoded, no any extra data. So we are going to copy it, come to our our reset password, and replace it with the correct metadata, and we are going to copy our password 7011 7011. So our what we want to change our password to is, let's say, 12345 12345. Before I change the password, let me try to log in with that particular user, and that particular user is just T1. Now this is the password we want to change to, but I'm going to try to log in first. So you can see we are getting invalid credential, and the correct password is password for this particular user. So you can see that it is correct, but let's try to reset the password to 12345. We've copied the correct token, and we've copied the correct metadata that is attached to the email. So let's hit it. So now you can see that password reset successful. If we try to log in with the same password now you see we are getting invalid credential. But if we change this, our password, to 12345 and try to log in, and bam, we are good now. So you can see now that our email is actually, our reset password is actually working very, very well, which is actually a plus to us. And this will be the end of this particular session. I know this session is quite longer than all other session we have actually implemented. I hope you have actually made it to this particular junction, and if you've made it to this junction, congratulations. And if you've not made it to this junction, I actually believe you will. I happy that you've actually made it to this junction, and I wish to see you in the next session, where we will be going deeper into the building of our backend application. I forgot to actually show us the token. So this is all the token that I've actually generated. So you can see all, some of them are used. If I try to use the same token now, let's see what the error will be. So you can see invalid reset token, right? But is that what we should really be getting? Reset password, validate password, reset token. Let's use the email. Hold on. Validate reset token. Let's see if it is used. Invalid password reset token. So what we should be saying, let's leave it like that. Invalid password reset token. So we can tell them to, yeah, let's leave it like that. So that will be the end. Please subscribe, hit like button, and please recommend this YouTube series to your friends, your colleague at work, so that they can actually learn with us. Thank you very much. See you in the next session.